Y'all aren't ready for this. Hey you guys, and welcome to the Prime Vanguard channel. It's Cassius here, and today I'll be representing to you my Soul Saber Dragon deck profile for the April 2021 meta. Now this deck profile is one that somebody asked me to do a while back, but at the time I just play tested Soul Saber Dragon for about 3 months and took notes on it as I do with most of my decks. And the build that I had for it in November is what I felt was the best that the deck could come out, because we hadn't got any good English support that actually supported Soul Saber Dragon at the time. So the Soul Saber Dragon deck profile that I made all the way back in November is just what I felt like was the best deck profile I could make for the deck at the time with what I just had. However, with the introduction of Clan Selection Volume 2 and the introduction of all those cards that came into the set, I now have a newer variation of my Soul Saber Dragon deck that's a lot stronger, faster, and ready to take on today's meta. This variation of the deck keeps all of the core elements of Soul Saber Dragon that I had in the past, but with the introduction of the newest line of Jewel Knights, I just can't wait to show you guys what I have going on here and just how it helps the deck out so much. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and hop right into this deck profile. Alright you guys, so to get started off with today's deck profile, I play 4 copies of Soul Saber Dragon. Soul Saber Dragon is one of the very first Vanguard cards ever introduced to us in V Standard. So if you guys don't know what she does, I'm going to go ahead and give you a fresh recap or an explanation of her effect. She has 2 following abilities and they read as followed. Her first ability states, act on the Vanguard circle, you may Soul Blast 6 and 6 of your units get plus 15,000 power to the end of the turn. Her second effect states, when it attacks, you may soul charge 1. Now these 2 abilities are very simple, but they are still extremely powerful in today's meta, as 15,000 power, especially in a force deck, means that you're already hitting over defensives, and if you give this to a column, that's plus 30,000 to the column, and let's say it's just 10 plus 8, that puts you at 18, so you're already swinging 48,000 to your opponent for a simple Soul Blast of 5. Now earlier in different variations of this deck back all the way in the game, this was a very hard thing to accomplish because we didn't have the resource to do that. However, now we finally do have the resource to do that, and the most important thing is that we can do this consistently. So this variation of Soul Saber Dragon hits really hard, hits like a truck, and the soul charging ability that she gives herself, as well as the soul blasting ability that we have, is one that we still play as a finishing style, as that's her purpose of the deck. But we now can do it so consistently that we no longer have to wait for the next ride after or the turn 4 or turn 5, because the supporting cards that we have for her just allow us to soul charge early in the game while applying a rush, so that when we drop her down with our force 2 marker, our attacks already have the big power and they just become a lot more threatening. And with the next card that I'm going to show you, I think you'll understand where I'm going with this. And now for the next grade 3 and the MVP of the deck, I'm going to go ahead and introduce for the very first time on the Prime Vanguard channel 4 copies of Pure Heart Jewel Knights Ashlei. Pure Heart Jewel Knight Ashlei is one of the newest grade 3 Royal Paladins introduced to us from Clan Selection Volume 2, and she has 2 different abilities, so I'll go ahead and read them off to you guys, which is the first one, which is auto. On Vanguard or Rearguard circle, at the end of the battle that this unit attacked, you Soul Blast 2 and search your deck up for 1 grade 2 or less card with Jewel Knight in its card name. You call it to the Rearguard circle, but if this unit is on the Vanguard circle, you call 2. Her second ability states that on Vanguard or Rearguard circle, when your other unit is placed on this unit's circle, you may Counterblast 1 and that unit gets plus green critical until the end of the turn. Now all of this is very huge, as this card, not only does she set up for a multi-attack in the deck that we can use that's not a counterblast cost, but she also gives a critical to the unit that will be placed above her. Now the reason why this is such a big deal is because with the introduction of this critical plussing ability, this card will become our first ride that we use before we go into Soul Saber Dragon. We'll multi-attack with it with Force 2, and then we'll go into Soul Saber Dragon and have another Force 2 generated, but we can now give a critical to our Vanguard, apply the Force 2 under our Rearguard. Therefore, on our final turn, we're giving 2 of our units an additional critical power bonus, as well as the power bonus effect from Soul Saber Dragon, leading to higher critical attacks and more power. And essentially, because you're using multi-attacks from the turn before, you're taking a lot of cards in your opponent's hand. And even though your opponent will be able to recuperate their hand through card effects depending on what deck they're playing, that doesn't really matter, just because they're going to have to stop everything, and that damage denial as well is going to be very harmful to our opponent. Ashlei giving us multi-attacks, the additional critical, as well as the power-up with the additional Jewel Knights that we play in the deck that I'm going to feature later, has been so helpful and key to the Soul Saver strategy that I don't know if I'm ready to say this yet, but I think that the Jewel Knight Soul Saver build is better than my original build of Soul Saver, most definitely, and probably the Majesty Lord Blaster build that I'll have coming out soon. For my last grade 3, I played 2 copies of Swordsman of the Explosive Flames, Palamedes. Palamedes has been a staple in all of my Soul Saver Dragon decks without any variation or question. The fact that he gets pumped up by 25,000 and gives you a soul charge on place automatically made him one of the best supporting grade 3s to the deck. But because we introduced the Jewel Knights and Ashlei into the deck, you now have opportunities to gain his power before you go into Soul Saver Dragon. Therefore, he doesn't simply just become a soul charging on place unit, he now can become a 23k beat stick against your opponent on your Jewel Knight rush turn, making this card a lot stronger and a lot faster than it ever was before. Now moving on to my grade 2s, I play 4 copies of Absolute Blade Knight Livarot. Livarot is just one of the best supporting grade 2 Royal Paladin units in the game. Being able to superior call a grade 2 unit anyone I want at any particular moment of the game, whether it costs me a counterblast or a soul blast if I don't have any counterblast, is extremely helpful. My next grade 2 is 4 copies of Exploding Jewel Knight Laille. Exploding Jewel Knight Laille is another card introduced to us through Clan Selection Volume 2, and she has the following effects. Her first ability states, Rearguard Circle, when it attacks, you put 2 normal units from your drop zone to the bottom of the deck, and then you soul charge 1. And these gets 5,000 power until the end of that battle. Its second ability states, the Vanguard or Rearguard Circle, when your other unit is placed on this unit circle, that unit gets plus 10,000 power until the end of the turn. Now, if you haven't noticed, the recurring theme with the Jewel Knights is that they give the power and effects to the units that are called over them, and then they recycle cards back into the deck or call cards out and get power for it, as well as soul charging. The soul charging and the fact that they do it so consistently while recycling is one of the main reasons why the archetype is the best supporting archetype so far for Soul Saver Dragon, as unlike with any other variation of Soul Saver Dragon there is, this deck actually does it consistently well because the Jewel Knights recycle themselves. They recycle themselves, gain power, and then they soul charge while doing it. And if you don't want to play the Jewel Knights anymore, you can play one of your stronger units such as Palamedes or other units I'm going to feature in the deck so that they gain power and effects based off of that. Meaning, calling over your units that you don't need anymore is no longer a minus as it is a plus. My next grade 2 is 2 copies of Diaconnect Dragon. This dragon is just an additional soul charge for the deck. I no longer play Pongal, but it essentially does the same thing to get more power. And for my last grade 2, I play 2 copies of Loading Angel. Now, in my previous variation of the Soul Saver Dragon deck, I did not have space for Loading Angel, as Loading Angel did not correspond well with the other grade 2s that I was playing in the deck that are more focused on you not having damage. But because I took out that type of engine from the deck and I'm no longer playing Alt Mile with my cards, I can play a strategy where I don't need to worry about having all my cards to damage on face down. And even if I do need to worry about that, I have abilities and skills that I'd rather use my counterblast on anyway, such as this one right here, and it's not detrimental to me or to my strategy. But now that I finally have the space to play Loading Angel, I understand previously why Soul Saver Dragon players love this card so much. This card is pretty much the one you're going to call on your Ashlei turn, fill up your board, get soul, draw 2, so that this way you can set up for your next turn and survive defensively on your opponent's grade 3 turn. As this deck does win on the second grade 3 turn because you're going to go into Ashlei and the Soul Saver, meaning between that time you just need to set up with Ashlei and then survive your opponent's turn before you kill them on your Soul Saver Dragon turn. And Loading Angel being able to get us all those free resources for just 1 counterblast is extremely helpful. Alright, I'm going to go ahead and go on to my grade 1s now. I play 3 copies of Knights of Exemplary Sword Lucius. This unit is amazing for the deck. It applies soul, gives you a draw and an on-call effect, and then because we are writing our grade 3s twice, we have 2 opportunities in the game to see this card and get full value of it, so it's not really a minus if you miss it on the first time with Ashlei, or it's not a minus when you miss it on the second time when you want to rewrite Ashlei, or if you want to ride your Soul Saver Dragon, still have the opportunity to play it again and at least get this card off once. For my next grade 1, I play 4 copies of Charging Jewel Knight Morvidius. Charging Jewel Knight Morvidius is one of the newest grade 1s introduced to us in Clan Selection Volume 2 for Royal Paladin, and she has the following effect, and I'm going to read her effect as follows. She has 2 effects which state on the rearguard circle. It's an act, you counterblast 1, put a normal unit from your drop zone to the bottom of your deck, soul charge 1, and one of your units with Jewel Knight in its card name get an additional 5,000 power until the end of the turn. Its second ability states on the Vanguard or rearguard circle, when your other unit is placed on this unit's circle, you may draw a card. This card automatically becomes an amazing ride target for the deck, just in case we don't get our next grade 1 that I'm going to show you, because we can draw a card, which makes it a free plus. Its ability to counterblast 1 and put a normal unit back into the deck while soul charging just reinforces what Jewel Knights are trying to do with the recycle and soul charging. And the plus 5,000 power is helpful as well, as we're just stacking more power into our rear guards, but we're maxing out 4 copies of this because we really want to be able just to see our Jewel Knight pieces on the board in our deck, because when we go into our Ashlei turn, we're going to want to call out 2 Jewel Knights, and they're going to be Morvidius and Laille. My last grade 1 is 4 copies of Laurel Knight Sicilus. Laurel Knight Sicilus is the Royal Paladin grade 3 searcher. We really want to be able to see our grade 3s. They are the key to our offense, and it's very important that we can ride into Ashlei then Soul Saver Dragon. Now for my triggers. So I play 4 copies of Flogal, 4 copies of my favorite crit, Bringer of Good Luck Epona, 4 copies of Flashing Jewel Knight's Iseult, 4 copies of the Yggdrasil Maiden Elaine, and 1 copy of Barcgal. Okay, well, you know what time it is. It's time for me to discuss what marker I think is best for the deck. And as I've stated in the past, I really do believe and just know for a fact that Force 2 is the best option for this deck. Force 2 is the way to go because the additional critical on top of the already powerful attacks that we have that are strong enough to go past more than 2 defensives is what we need to keep this deck on top of our opponent, because we already have consistency plays that will give us backup options for defense. Now it's just maintaining the power so that we scare our opponent on our kill turns. And Force 1 doesn't do anything on attacks that are already going to be very powerful over 2 defensive triggers. So Force 2 just makes sure that your opponent has to plan their defense smart, otherwise they are going to die. That's why Force 2 is the best option for this deck and this variation of Soul Saver Dragon that I'm playing. Alright you guys, thank you so much for watching today's deck profile. If you enjoyed today's video, please make sure to hit the thumbs up button. It does help the channel a lot. Don't forget to comment and subscribe to my channel and hit the notification bell so you guys get notified with all my new deck profiles and discussions coming out. I know I've been a little slow on them lately, but I'm catching back on track as fast as I can. And if your friend is looking for a Soul Saver Dragon deck profile to follow off or build from, then go ahead and share this video with them as well. All my decks are templates. They're just my personal experience from playtesting, taking notes, and just from what I think is best for the deck. But every deck and every player plays their own cards their own way, so go ahead and build this deck any way you want to. Just use this deck as a template, as a start off, and build it from your point of view. But that's it, you guys. Peace.